Alan McInroy, how are you, sir?
I am well, Dan. Thank you. Good to see you.
Fantastic, fantastic. Do you have slides today, or
I
just
do,
talk?
yes.
All right, I'll hand it over to you then.
No problem. Thank you very much. Hopefully you're seeing that okay?
Yep.
Brilliant. Okay, smashing. Okay, thanks, Dan and the guys at Foresight for giving me an opportunity, I guess, to give a sort of state of the nation almost when it comes to this new and emerging concept of mobility as a service. Well, it's not so new anymore, but still relatively new, and where we kind of sit with it in Scotland at the moment, and where we're hoping to go with it over the next few months and years. So, first of all, just to explain, I mean, Dan introduced me as being the Chief Executive of Technology Scotland, which I am, but one of the networks that we run is the MaaS Scotland network that was set up about 4 years ago to be kind of focal point for mobility as a service activities in Scotland. And really what we're about is facilitating initiatives that will help to deliver the benefits of MaaS to Scotland. We're a network of about 75 public and private sector organisations now from across the MaaS supply chain. And primarily, as well as building that network, what we're focused on mostly at the moment is facilitating projects, which I'll touch on in just a minute. And then beyond that, looking at a kind of roadmap to how we begin to upscale and deliver MaaS more broadly across Scotland. And hopefully, in doing all that, position Scotland as well as a global lead in MaaS development. There is an opportunity here to put Scotland at the leading edge of that internationally. Okay, just very briefly, because it's not really the purpose of today's talk, but just so we're on the same page in terms of what is MaaS, what is mobility as a service, because there's lots and lots of different definitions. But ultimately, it's about integrating various transport modes in a particular geographical area into some type of single mobility service, accessible on demand. Usually that's done through an app or a web-based type application. And ultimately that's about, it's built on data, right? So at the first layer, it's about journey planning, really. And it's about taking information from all the different modes that might exist in a particular area, from traditional public transport modes through to emerging modes, to shared bike schemes and car shares and car clubs, maybe even drone flight, who knows in future. I listened to Richard earlier on. We're bringing all that information together and then presenting it back to the user to allow them to make an informed choice as to how they're going to go from A to B at any particular time and any particular day. So that's the kind of journey planning element of it. The second layer is payment. So once you've planned that journey, is to then to allow you to pay for that through a single exchange and through a single ticket or a single mobile ticketing, whatever it might be. And that's, of course, where things start to get a little bit complicated, because you're then beginning to have to juggle lots and lots of different stakeholders and operators in order to achieve that. But I think generally it's probably fair to say that that's probably where MaaS has got to. Most of it, it's mostly been about planning, booking and payment. But there's more to MaaS, at least there should be longer term. And then the next part of that is, for example, is around journey management. And that is injecting bits of information into your journey to help you plan and negotiate your journey as it happens. Everything from kind of delays and traffic congestion through to things that might affect you more personally around air quality, for example. Maybe you're driven by the weather or whatever that might be. And the whole point of this is that we begin to move towards, I guess, what is really the core of mobility as a service, which is about personalisation of transport. Now, MaaS at its core, is built on shared transport, which by its definition is not personalised. But what you can do is begin to personalise the way that the information is given to you, the way that it's presented to you in order to help you plan your journeys. And that's where it can be personalised. And that can be built around your own profile. And that does involve a bit of sharing of your own information, of course. But through that and through understanding the user and understanding the reason for your journeys, why you're travelling, then we can begin to not only give you more informed choices about how you would do that, but also we can begin to incentivise. And that's when it starts to get really exciting, because then we can start thinking about nudging travel behaviours. And ultimately, that's what this is about. It's about getting people out of the car, private car, and into some kind of shared mode, public transport or otherwise. And clearly the benefits of that are quite substantial. There are clear benefits to environment and health if we have less cars on the road. There are also benefits, if done correctly, around making transport more accessible and inclusive. From an operator and a city perspective, there's an opportunity to use the data gathered through MaaS to plan more efficient and more sustainable services. And of course, anything related to improved transport ultimately can help the economy and innovation as well. So I could talk for an hour on that slide alone, but that's just a very brief overview. So in terms of MaaS, as I mentioned before, 75 public and private sector organisations, and that includes technology providers, consultancies, local authorities, transport operators, so right across the MaaS supply chain. So that was a good start. But then what we needed to do was to raise the profile of MaaS more generally, particularly to those who could help to deliver it. And I guess that message was primarily for Scottish Government, for Transport Scotland, for some local authorities and operators. Say, right, what is this thing for MaaS called MaaS, and what does it actually mean, not just for transport, but for adjacent policy areas like health, inclusivity, and things like that. So this was a paper we produced about 3 years ago now, I guess, fairly top-level paper outlining the advantages of MaaS and what we thought was required to begin to progress that. And that led ultimately to the creation of the Scottish Government's MaaS Investment Fund, which is a national programme of MaaS pilots supported by Scottish Government and Transport Scotland. And we currently have 4 projects underway as part of that fund, led by 2 of our regional transport partnerships, 1 of our city councils, and through the University of St Andrews. So we're really excited to see how those projects go. However, we don't see that being the start and end of MaaS in Scotland. And there is also a pipeline of projects coming through, some of which were discussed at a conference last week, being led by the likes of Aberdeen, by Sestrand Regional Transport Partnership, by the City of Perth, towards creating more MaaS pilots. So there are opportunities there for those perhaps to get involved. Alongside the projects, we are keen to develop, a kind of roadmap, if you like, for MaaS. We need those projects because they provide the evidence base. How will people actually engage with MaaS? What will it actually mean to how people consume transport? And so we need those MaaS pilots, either funded through the MaaS Investment Fund or otherwise. But there's also a whole lot of other enablers that we need to discuss longer term if we're going to get MaaS rolling out at the scale that we wish it to across Scotland. We need to start talking about digital connectivity, infrastructure, interoperability, behavioural change, governance, and the list goes on. And the whole idea is that alongside those projects and alongside these discussions that we can begin to build that roadmap. So another way to get involved in all this is that we have created 4 special interest groups looking at some of these key questions for the future of MaaS in Scotland. And these have been running since the turn of the year, since kind of January time. And you can see the 4 that we've identified there. Clearly, there's quite an overlap between them. They've been on a bit of a hiatus because of the MaaS Scotland conference, but they will start again and run throughout November and December. And if these are areas that you're interested in, perhaps not just from a MaaS perspective, but a broader transport perspective, then I encourage you to go on our website and look these up and join in these conversations. Okay, just briefly, I mentioned the conference as my last slide. We are running our conference this year online across 4 sessions. 2 of them have already been delivered, but there are still 2 to come. So 2 that you can get involved with on the 5th and 7th of October. And you can see what we're exploring there in terms of governance for the first one, and then more broadly, sustainable transport and the road to COP26 in the last one. Any questions? Ping me an email or go on the MaaS Scotland website. But that's it for me. Thanks, guys.